Hello and welcome to the HealthTech Hour this week. My name is Steve Roest, and each week we bring you the best news, views, and interviews with the CEOs, leaders, and clinicians who are changing the face of healthcare in the UK and beyond. And the beyond bit is pretty critical for this show, as we will get into as we move through the show. As regular listeners know, I'm a HealthTech founder and CEO myself, founder and CEO of PocDoc, which is changing the face of blood testing by allowing smartphones to do blood tests. I'm passionate about the people and companies who are changing the world. Thanks to everyone who's listening live on UK Health Radio. And also thank you for listening if you are listening on your favorite podcast platform. So we're now on Spotify, Apple, Google, and Amazon. Also, please make sure you follow the show, which is at HealthTech Hour on the socials. You can follow me. I'm at Steve Roest, CEO. And please make sure you follow the station, which is at UK Health Radio. There are a ton of presenters doing some really fantastic things on the station. So please follow the station to stay on top of all of that. So that's the admin out the way for the day. So today is International Women's Day. It's been all over the news today, all over the socials. You know, if you've been kind of on social media, it's kind of a thing today. The theme for this year's day is #BreakTheBias. And I want to read the vision statement of this year's day, partly because I think that everyone should hear it, and partly as a tribute to my aunt, Mary Lloyd, who actually sadly passed away yesterday. She was a fantastic woman. She dedicated her life to helping children with special educational needs, including severe autism. She was a wonderful mother, grandmother, and of course, aunt, and she will be sorely missed. So here is the vision statement for today. Imagine a gender equal world. A world free of stereotype and bias and discrimination. A world that is diverse, equitable, and inclusive. A world where difference is valued and celebrated. Together, we can forge women's equality. Collectively, we can #BreakTheBias. I think is very powerful, and it's perfect that our guest today, Marissa Fayer, is the founder and CEO of Her Health EQ, which has the mission and the vision of creating health equality for women by providing access to medical devices and treatment in developing countries. Marissa is a professional TEDx speaker and a huge advocate and activist for health equality. So Marissa, welcome to the show. How are you?
Thanks for having me. Happy International Women's Day.
Thank you very much. Yeah, it's good to be celebrating it on the show. Where exactly are you calling from?
So I'm calling from New York City. So I'll always do the apology of the sirens in the background. You can never, whatever sound canceling you try, you can never get rid of them. So somebody might hear it, but I promise you I'm okay.
It's all good. Okay, good. We won't get worried. But it's great that we're having you call in from the US. As we say, we're a global show, so it's good to have, representation from different parts of the world. We had Selena Gore, who is also on your side of the pond, the CEO of Women Heart, on a couple of weeks ago. It's always good to get a kind of a diversity of opinion and insight from everywhere, so that we're not just so focused on one particular area. So as a lot of regular listeners will know, the show is in 3 parts. The first part is really the origins of how our guests came to be doing all of the fantastic stuff that they are doing. The middle part is generally about all of the stuff that the guests are doing to change the world. And then the final part really is more, I like to make it more around like the personal motivation and lessons that can be passed on to anyone listening about life or business or whatever ultimately like we get on, because again, we're very much geared on the show around bringing people on who are mission driven and who have, whether that be in the for-profit or not-for-profit space, or even as a clinician or as a doctor or a GP, who have a mission that they're following through on, and that generally, but I don't know, particularly in healthcare, following through on a mission is a pretty bumpy task. There's quite a lot of headwinds to get through. So a lot of people generally seem to, I think, trying to kind of unpick how those leaders have kept on going and kept on through those dark times, I think is really, really valuable. So let's kick off like we normally do, which is just to try and understand what was your journey into healthcare. So I know that you actually have a very, very strong engineering background, from unnamed number of years ago, but a strong engineering background. But how did you get drawn into healthcare or health technology, and why? How did that journey happen?
I mean, honestly, it was a fluke.
We like honesty.
Everyone knows that I will speak total truth here, but It was a fluke. Like I started in aerospace engineering. I wanted to be an astronaut. I wanted to work at NASA. I wanted to send people to space, to the moon, to Mars, and all of that. And I, would still love to do that, and have fully signed up for every possible scenario to make that happen. But it wasn't an option for me at that point. They didn't allow people with corrective lenses. That has since changed, and unfortunately, I then aged out, and then I hurt my back, and it's like, you become too old eventually.
So what, like, when did you decide that you were going to go down the NASA pathway? And like, when did you find out about the corrective sight thing? Like, how far down were you when you found out, like, you couldn't do it because of your eyes?
So like, I went to Space Camp and Space Academy, like multiple times. I studied aerospace engineering at college, and then, I interned at a company that makes jet engines for airplanes. Like I was fully all in. Wow. Yeah. And I knew the corrective lenses things. It was always the hope, like, oh, maybe it'll just they'll change it, which they did. But at that point, it was fine. And I was kind of like, all right, enough of this theory. I want to do something that makes a difference.
Okay.
And I stayed within engineering. I just changed majors within. I went to manufacturing engineering. It was very hands-on. Yeah. And so, I was like physically making a difference, making factories more efficient, making new products. I was like, this is exciting.
Right.
And so I just happened to get recruited in to a medical device company right out of university. I was like, oh, okay, great. I guess we'll help people. And, that was kind of always my thing, was like exploration and making things better and figuring out what's next. So, I mean, it worked. And it's, as everybody in the med tech world knows, like once you're in, you almost never leave. Yeah. You have this, like, regardless of what you're doing in med tech, you're actually helping somebody. Yeah. And it makes a difference, and people see that and they get excited. And, it's kind of nice to work on that as opposed to, I don't know, like a chair, which are wonderful and needed and necessary, but like, or another, toy, which of course are necessary for children's growth. But like in med tech, you get hooked.
There's a lot more innovation. So what was the first device that you worked on? Do you remember?
So, oh my God, there was a few of them, but it was actually timely for now as a chest drain. So it takes the fluid, and everybody here, or most of them are physicians or technicians or clinicians, so everybody knows. But it takes the fluid and the air out of the lungs, and redesigning production lines and new products coming out, and really develop the really small ones. So that's, for ambulatory use. And that was kind of the first of their kind. Wow. And, I kind of stuck in that, and started doing some work on catheters, doing some work on imaging systems, and started doing work on endoscopes, and kind of just kept on going and never stopped. 22 years later. Thank you for the unnamed.
I didn't want to, it's fine. I also didn't actually take the time to count up or do the maths, but I didn't want to, out you, but yeah. And so like, was there a point when you, like you said, and it's the same for me, having worked in HealthTech now, I know that there's a higher purpose, right? What we're doing has a real impact, a positive impact. So even like, let's say you were working on a device and it didn't really, I don't know, for whatever reason, it didn't get the traction it should have done. The intent to help somebody was still there, right?
Yeah. I mean, listen, everyone's intent, most 99.9% of people, their intent in this industry is to help people. And so, and I think even the people who fail, they're the ones, they still intended to help. They just couldn't get traction, or couldn't move it forward, or didn't do it in a truthful way. And so, there's very little, I just want to make money, and who cares about the people? I mean, unfortunately, that sometimes happens to corporations, but that's not the true mission and vision of kind of what the organization.
Certainly not at the device level, right? Like certainly not at that device level. Like I think that there's, I don't know, maybe we won't get into like the whole health insurance aspect of, that stuff. That's a whole big area. But like certainly anyone that's spending their time and capital in medical device development is doing it to solve a problem. Now you could have a debate about how big the problem is and how much money can be got from the problem, and etc. But ultimately, the whole purpose is to design a device that solves a particular medical, clinical, health problem.
Correct. I mean, listen, any new innovation that comes out is always solving some sort of problem. And again, it could be faster, cheaper, better, but it's still solving some sort of problem or some sort of issue that either a surgeon has or the market has, or there's a gap or there's not, or, you just want the new iteration. You're still serving a higher purpose.
No, agreed. And with that background,
especially even with the work that you're doing, even with the work that everybody's doing. I mean, that's what this is. So I mean, why be in this industry if you're not?
No, exactly. I mean, and also, to be honest with you, if you wanted to make a quick buck, you probably wouldn't choose medical device development, right? There's a lot of value there that you can get to, but it's not something that you can flip on overnight, right? Because there's all of the, R&D, there's all of the manufacturing scale up, there's all of the regulatory pathways that you've got to understand, and you've got to move through. And quite rightly, right? It shouldn't be easy to put a medical device on the market. Like, it should be difficult with a lot of due diligence and a lot of kind of, rigor to it. Otherwise, goodness me, what would happen?
Well, I mean, that's what all these industries are and agencies are for. I mean, I think their motto is, to do no harm. It's not like, is it better? Does it make more money? Is it faster? That doesn't matter. Is it do no harm? And that's what they're there for. And the process should be rigorous. I mean, no, you're not in medical devices to make a buck. I mean, let's just.
Well, I mean,
people do, and it's wonderful if you do, and it'd be great if all of us did. But I mean, it's not the easiest way. Let's be clear.
Let's put it that way. I was kind of impressed with the FDA though, because I don't know if you followed this, just as a random offshoot, then we can get back to your journey just quickly. But in the UK, they effectively basically let every man and his dog sell to import COVID-19 antigen tests, right? Yeah. And the FDA actually they had a big problem with them, with the same tests, with the same manufacturers, right? So there was a US company called Innova actually, and they didn't get FDA, and now I think they're even being investigated by the FDA. So I was kind of impressed about that actually, that they were like, because obviously in the UK and Europe, pretty much those antigen tests, they were like, okay, cool, come on in, guys. Yeah, great. Like, come on. Yeah. Okay, cool. You've got an instruction leaflet and a box. Like, well done. You're all good. Whereas in the US, like, the FDA was a lot more rigorous with it.
Yeah, I don't think it's Innova. It's a different name, but yes. But we, quite honestly, I'm really proud because I actually worked on that program.
Oh, cool.
I kind of still do.
With the FDA?
So I work with the NIH on their RADx COVID-19, it's a rapid task force, and it's to get all of these rapid tests, get the laboratory scales, scale it up, get the point of care, the OTC test in the market. Cool. I've been working on it since May 2020, and it's the first of its kind initiative for the government, quite honestly. It's like a Shark Tank. Like they literally, there's multiple levels that they had to go through to pitch, to see the viability, and then they get money, and then there's another tranche, and then you have to pitch again. And it's actually the first time that they've ever done this, and they're doing it now for other things. They're doing it for they just started it for some neuro issues. We're hoping that they're actually going to use this for the cancer moonshot initiatives as well.
Okay, nice.
And so like, this is a new way of thinking that the government and these agencies have started to approach this. Like, we would never have scaled up at the scale that we have. The FDA has made some significant changes. I mean, the whole EUA protocol, just in general, I mean, it was kind of used like barely.
Yeah, there was no reason to use it,
now everybody
right?
even knows the word, the acronym, what it means.
Yeah, I know. It's like, oh God, we have one of those, and you get the EUA book out of the drawer. Like, what happens,
Yeah, I mean, everyone like literally in the beginning, we're like, okay, so what does this mean? And now, like, just the layman people on the street knows what it means. It's amazing. And so, like, this is. You listen, like, everyone moved heaven and earth to make this happen. And I'm not saying the US did it well, because, certainly there's many ways that we did not do it as well. And,
2020, right?
And we do lag behind, and still do on tests and having test capabilities, and, not test capabilities, but tests in the market. Right. I mean, it would have been great if we had so many of them like you did before, but I think to us, like, efficacy is way more important, and not to say it's not in the UK or anywhere else, but I mean, last summer, I was in Amsterdam, and I picked up a box of 20 of them, and
Yeah.
I used them. I think that they were great. I hope that they worked and that they were certified. But
I mean, they would all, so they would have all been certified, right? But it's like there was no, whereas with well, I guess what I was sort of saying was like the tests that were certified in Europe didn't pass the FDA, basically. So you're like, well, yeah. Anyway, I was just, and also from a PocDoc perspective, our interaction with the FDA processes and things like that, we've been super impressed so far. It's really, really great. Really
yeah,
awesome.
they've been starting to move really quick. Like, as a result of COVID-19, they've been moving much faster because they knew that they had to, and that there was a lot of pressure, just life pressure in order to do that. It's less government pressure. It's more like, hey, for a life. And we're, everyone's hoping like this is how they're going to move forward, especially in the future. I mean, you've been seeing that, right? That's what you said.
No, exactly.
It's great.
Yeah, no, and I think look, we've seen generational change in the healthcare system over the last 2 years, but it was probably some stuff that was stored up that should have happened that hadn't already happened, and there was kind of some making up to do, as well as sort of genuine incremental progress. But yeah, no, look, there are differences between the European system and between the US system, and from a regulatory perspective, I think they've got like pros and cons, but there's some stuff around in the US system which is just, I guess, kind of unsurprisingly a bit more pragmatic, about like the understanding that there's a commerciality to it, and you're dealing with commercial companies, and so you can sort of treat them maybe more like grown-ups and less like sort of children, that where so I think that's how the European maybe differs. But so how, obviously you were in this manufacturing space for a while, but that's not where you stayed, right? So then you moved into venture funding, and then obviously now you're doing Her Health EQ. So why did you transition out of manufacturing, and what happened sort of after that bit?
Yeah, I mean, I was in industry for 15 years working corporate, and I think I just got burnt out. I mean, I was traveling the world. I was living in so many different countries, and I'm sure that we'll for sure get to that journey. But for me, honestly, I was exhausted, and I needed to take a little bit of break. I did that by not taking a break and starting a consulting firm. Unfortunately, oops. Yeah, I mean, so I started a consulting firm, of which is still in existence. I've been doing it for 8 years. I did a lot of work in manufacturing still, scale ups, but it was more, to my choice, as opposed to being forced to do that.
Right.
And
it was under your control.
And then, through there, I was meeting people, and then I got into venture, which was really, really exciting and interesting. And so, from there, I kind of did some work in venture, was doing some advising work, and then I joined a venture firm as a partner, and it's to my passion, which is exciting.
And so how, I'm always interested, so, to get the venture kind of investor side of things, because it is really different, right? The way that they have to think about things is different. And so what would you, because obviously you've worked both sides kind of in effect. So what are the biggest differences, you think, from someone that, from the entrepreneurial side or the corporate side versus someone who's an investor or a fund or that type of thing? What are some of those big differences?
Yeah, I don't think there's that many, because most investors, or the good ones, have been operators at some point, and they know what that's like. They understand that you still need a really good product, you still need a good process, you still need good people, you still need good everything, and you need good advice. And that's what investors are. They're good advice with money. And they're the ones that obviously they want to see the return, because it's their capital, or it's capital that they've raised, and they have to then prove returns as well. And so there's not that much difference. I think sometimes investors forget the other side of the world, of which they used to be operators. They used to have to, report into investors or public facing, companies. And so I think sometimes they forget, and that it's not just about the money. And in healthcare, obviously it's not just about the money. It's an important part of it, but a lot of people are starting to shift over to that. Okay, it's about the money, but also how many people are we impacting? What are we doing with this? How are we making a difference? How are we making the world better?
Yeah.
And, I'm grateful to be part of that and to start seeing that life, because that's exciting. And that's the work that like I get excited about, as opposed to, hey, we've just funded like another widget and it's just an iteration of the widget before. I mean, I think a lot of people are starting to come around to that impact side. But I mean, the difference between investors and operators, I mean, or entrepreneurs. I mean, entrepreneurs need the money, investors have it. It's a position of power, unfortunately. And, it really, I think it's the entrepreneurs that have the power. They're the ones that have the technology. And I think if anything has shown, I would hope if anything has shown, like that's starting to change a little bit. But
I think in HealthTech,
continuously raising money, like I can tell you it probably hasn't changed.
Well, I think in the, we got a break for a second in a minute, but just on the back of what you said, I think particularly in HealthTech, where, like in other industries, right? Like venture building is a big thing, right? For example, where, money, if you like, venture capitalists will come together and they'll kind of figure out an idea, a proposition, and then they'll pass it to a young, hungry entrepreneurial type who'll then kind of execute on it. I think that there's less of that in HealthTech, purely because there's so much IP, particularly if anything's more technical, if it's more in the digital healthcare sort of lighter side of app type thing, I think it might be a bit easier. But anything that's IP rich or IP heavy, then that's going to be really, really hard to do. So I think that then therefore, that those entrepreneurs that are in that space that have that IP do have quite a lot of power and leverage.
Absolutely.
Cool. Right. We're going to stop for a couple of minutes for a commercial break, and then we're going to be back and we're going to talk all about Her Health EQ and how you ended up doing that, because ultimately it's International Women's Day. And so that is the reason we've got you on. And I know that stuff is all super exciting for personally as well as professionally, at least for me. So let's take a couple of minutes and then we'll be right back with Marissa Fayer, CEO and founder of Her Health EQ.
Vitamin C supplements. Usually only a small proportion of vitamin C actually reaches your cells and has a positive effect. Whereas the high absorption levels of Goldman Laboratories liposomal vitamin C help maintain optimal vitamin C levels in your body and strengthen your immune system. Now get 10% off when you choose Goldman Laboratories liposomal vitamin C capsules. Just quote 10 off at goldmanlaboratories.com. Do you suffer from pain? BeCure Laser, a whole new CE-approved medical device for the effective treatment of pain, is now available in the UK. The results of a double-blind trial has shown that BeCure Laser offers a significant reduction in pain compared to the placebo group. To get your special BeCure offer now, call free on 0808 501 5122 or Google Radio Pro London. BeCure Laser.
Hello and welcome back to this week's HealthTech Hour with me, Steve Roest, and Marissa Fayer, the CEO and founder of Her Health EQ, which is what we're going to talk about now. So you absolutely crushed it in manufacturing, in medical devices, then dominated the world of venture funding. And then, how did you move from there into doing charity? And why did you do charity? And then also why this particular charity, if that makes sense? Because there are, the world's got a lot of nails and not enough hammers. So why this particular one?
Yeah, totally true. Well, I also want to clarify, I'm doing literally all of them at the same time right now.
Oh, great. So... Good. Okay, good. Well, concurrently, you're like, okay, well, my apologies. I didn't mean to say, I made it sound like it was sequential, totally, and it's actually concurrent.
No, totally good. It's I feel the need to be a multipreneur and refuse to do one thing at a time, which I think is why it kind of set me up to do Her Health EQ as well. Okay. The reason I started it was because I saw such a gap. I mean, that's, as an engineer, we see gaps, we fix them and try to find a way to fix them. That's literally what I did. And so found a gap in the healthcare system globally, where there were new versions of things coming out, or marketing changes where the color changes, or, customers return it because there's a scratch, from a very fancy US, UK, European based hospitals. And, a lot of times, they repair them. A lot of the medical device companies try to resell them, but there's a gap. There's always a gap for what they've produced and what they can sell. And so there's equipment that's sitting on the shelf. There's equipment that's been returned. There's equipment that might be down a revision or a generation, and they don't want it out in the market any longer. And so it gets thrown away. And, we're talking about things that capital equipment that have a useful life of 25 years.
Wow.
I mean, and after 2 years, it gets thrown away just because there's a scratch. I mean,
but it's still functional, right? It's still safe, it's still accurate.
Fully functional, fully certified, fully fine, except, there's a lot of the hospitals in the US have a capital spending cycle. And if you don't spend it, you lose it.
Right.
And so why not spend it and get, you guys have that in, NHS
we
as well.
We have, in the NHS a bit, but in councils, there's always this joke, like, I don't know quite what the equivalent of a council is in your part of the world, but it's like a little area, like a county, and there's like the board of whoever that runs the county. They're called a council in England, in the UK. And that it's coming up to budget time because you see traffic signs going up everywhere because they've got to get the cash out. Right, there's traffic signs and speed bumps and it's just like, oh, get it out, get it done. Anyway, sorry, carry on with what you were saying.
No. And same thing. I mean, listen, we have it here too. Like, it's the end of the month and all of a sudden all the traffic cops are out. We get that. Gotta hit your quota. But it's literally the same thing at hospitals. And every 2 to 3 years, most of them, and especially the big ones, they switch over their capital equipment. I mean, in relative terms, I mean, an MRI machine that costs $5 million is not being switched out every 2 years, but most everything else is. And a lot of times it sits in a closet, or it gets sent back, or, you're like, hey, great, I'm going to trade it in. And then all of a sudden you're like, hey, okay, great. The manufacturer's like, well, we have too many of these. Here's your $500 discount on your next one, and throw it out.
Right.
Like, throw out an entire ultrasound machine, wheel it into the dumpster in the back.
Really? And so the manufacturer says, we don't want it. You do what you want with it. Wow. Okay.
Yeah. And so, I saw that as I developed the 3D mammography system. The 2D ones, or the lower versions of the 3D ones, were coming back. And they were getting, refurbished and whatever, but everyone, it's a big deal. Like, when new model of something comes out, just like a car, you don't want the old one. Right. And so, a lot of people didn't want the old ones. We had mammogram machines lined up against the wall. And, all of a sudden I'm living and working in Costa Rica, and I see that there's women, a friend of mine is telling me that there's women dying of breast cancer in this one region. And like, they were dying because their mammogram machine broke down 10 years ago. They weren't near the capital. The government didn't actually see that was a problem. And so from our perspective, I said, I was a very naive 30-year-old. And I'm like, well, let's fix that. Like, I know exactly somewhere that has mammogram machines lying around and sitting around. So let's get one installed. And it's, it's a very naive, as far as the process goes, it's really, just trust me, that not that easy.
Yeah, I can imagine it's not that simple.
Yeah, like, you're moving it in between countries with two different jurisdictions and power conditions, and and you have to go over the mountain by 5 hours, and how is it going to get installed? And there's not enough power, so you have to dig a trench to get it there. And it's like all of these.
And were you on site in Costa Rica doing this kind of were you there? That's amazing.
Yeah, so I was in Costa Rica. I was working for the same company I was working for when I was developing the 3D mammography system, HealthTech, and anybody who watched the Super Bowl should have seen their commercial. I'm not working for them anymore, but still proud of them.
Wait, so they did a mammography advert in the Super Bowl? That's
not for mammography, punchy. Just general health. It was Mary J. Blige was a spokesperson, and it's just just generally, it was the first major medical device company to have some sort of, and first, women's health company to,
I mean,
to
you
have
say
an
that
effort like that.
you say you can't make a buck in medical devices, but I'm pretty sure. I'm pretty sure a Super Bowl advertising spot with Mary J. Blige is going to cost a couple of bucks, probably.
Yeah, but
that's
it's something
super cool.
it's really cool. And so it was in Costa Rica. Utilized the entire team down there. God love my boss down there who had to drive me 5 hours each way. I had to listen to his horrible music, but still we had a great adventure to go there and check out the site and meet with the doctors and understand their requirements. And, we did that 3 or 4 times. And, the entire team that got it into the country and got it installed and, all of these things, like it truly takes like, a team to be doing this. And so that led me to think about like, okay, great. So that's one piece of equipment. What about the rest? And that was one country where I knew somebody.
And so like, exactly. So how does that turn into, how do you scale that concept? That's hard.
Yeah. And so, I left corporate in the meantime, started my consulting firm, and there was still like this nagging, I have to do something. And so I started the charity. I started Her Health EQ, and started 6 years ago, and just started working with this concept and connecting with medical device manufacturers, connecting with hospitals, connecting with, people who needed it, and different countries. And it started off like a friend of a friend knew somebody in Jamaica. So they connected me to them, and okay, great. What do you need? Oh, you need an ultrasound machine, and you need something to detect cervical cancer. Great. Let me go and get that. And it's like, you call your contacts, you do this, and you figure it out. And, you send a team down to Jamaica, you train them, it's like all of these things. And that's how it started.
Right. And so you were sort of running like an unofficial kind of like not-for-profit marketplace for like medical devices, right? Trying to like almost in a very tongue-in-cheek sort of way. But and how, because I know that you've done work in Burkina Faso, in Costa Rica, in Jamaica, in all of these kind of different, how did it, or has it evolved? It sounds like it has, but how did it evolve from that sort of like, oh my goodness, there's a guy here that needs this, and I found someone over there that's got that, and like, how is it sort of because how does that evolve into what it is today, which I'm guessing seems a lot more structured, a lot more, what's the word, sort of elevated and larger.
Thank you for that wonderful illusion that it is. But yes, it is. It's a lot more, 6 years later, you learn. And there's a lot of processes. There's a lot of formal, agreements in place. And so that helps. We're out in the world more. So, people see it. And so, listen, like we're a formal 501c3 charity. We have been, thankfully, for many years. And, so from that perspective, we've just grown. We've grown our network. We've grown, our supplier network. We've also grown our distributor network as far as where it's going, where we've also kind of tightened up what we wanted to do.
Right.
We've focused only on non-communicable diseases that affect women. So diabetes, heart disease, cancers affecting women, and maternal health. Those are the 4 areas, more or less, that are affecting women, where there's equipment that can prevent, detect, or treat these issues, so that they can have wonderful, productive lives to move forward, to contribute back to their family, to contribute to their communities and to society as a whole. And listen, like all of this started as a girl myself in STEM, and I want girls to go to school. Girls are not going to school, and they're being pulled out first when their mothers, their aunts, their grandmothers, etc., are sick or have died, and they're being pulled out to take care of their families. And so, quite honestly, my intent was to make sure girls are going to school, because I know girls, including myself, are more adept, actually, until it's trained out of us, in science and in math and in technology and in engineering. And there's no reason that there's not going to be, the next Nobel Prize winners. They're girls. They're going to be in developing countries because they were able to go to school. They're the ones that are going to cure cancer and solve, world peace, let's hope. And, like it's girls who are going, or women, girls who turn into women who are going to do that. And so that was my intention. Like,
I think that's
I'm in healthcare. I can solve one gap. I don't need to build another school. There's plenty of schools.
Yeah,
they just need to go to them.
Yeah, I think that's a really interesting angle on the whole thing, which is like some people's solution, which is, I mean, look, you're not gonna know, it's not a bad thing to build schools, right? But the solution to trying to keep girls in school is not necessarily more schools, right? You've got to track back along the pathway to understand why they're not spending time in school, which could be lots of different things, but particularly as far as health is concerned, keeping the other women in their family group healthy or healthier for longer means that those younger girls can stay in school for longer.
Yeah.
I think that's really,
exactly
really
what
insightful.
And listen, I'm in healthcare. Like I happen to be in healthcare. If I happened to be an educator, I would have solved this problem completely differently. But I'm in healthcare and I figured out how I can solve it. And it's not the only solution because we all need to do this together. But like it's one solution that hopefully is going to make a dent.
And why particularly those, I think cancer might be sort of obvious to people listening, everyone's probably either had their own cancer story or someone very close to them, but in developing countries or developing nations, why focus on heart disease and diabetes in those developing countries? Are they as big of a problem in developed countries? I'm sort of asking a rhetorical question because I kind of know the answer, but I think it's useful to kind of explain it as well, because I think that there is a perception that's wrong, that some of the issues that affect developed countries' healthcare systems don't affect developing countries' healthcare systems.
Yeah, it's that we actually just don't hear about it, because a lot of people, and like, listen, we work in this middle bracket, not the poorest of the poor, not the wealthiest of the wealthiest. We work in this middle income area, low to middle income area, which which is an interesting area to work in, because once you've kind of graduated from the lowest of the bottom of the pyramid, most of your aid actually leaves. And so your healthcare systems are not equipped. So like everyone's starting to make a little bit more money. You're starting to have these sugary, horrible products. You're starting to see, weight gain as a sign of wealth. You're starting to see like, great, I can buy that bag of chips. These are things that are exciting. And unfortunately, obesity, unfortunately, heart disease. And the other thing is, it's great. You've not solved, but you've eradicated a lot of the issues that are taking people at a much earlier age. And now people are living longer. And so they're developing cancer and diabetes and heart disease. And it's one of those things, listen, it's barely talked about in the US and in Europe. So it's certainly not talked about there. And this is an issue. Like these are 100% issues around the world, especially when you start introducing food that's not good for you, and environmental issues and stress of work and cities and all of these other things that that's one of the reasons why. And we focus on these things because with equipment, like these are things that we can work on. We can work on, we can work on everything and everything. We also wanted to take a kind of broad strokes approach to say, like, let's get some diagnosis. Do I think that, there should be targeted proton therapy? Yes, of course. But like, if nobody even knows what cervical cancer is, and that it can be, if caught early, it can be eradicated with a shot eventually, and B, within a 2-minute procedure. Hey, you don't need to worry about, very expensive $1 million proton therapy. Like, how about we just get a $10,000 piece of equipment over to where it needs to go?
Well, especially when that $10,000 piece of equipment has been junked. Right?
Correct. Or, because it has a scratch on it, or the marketing colors have changed. These are things that like, these are things that there's excess of. And so why not put them to use? And that's exactly why I started Her Health EQ. Again, engineer, found something that needed to be fixed it with the solution. And, we're not different than some other organizations that are out there. Our difference is that we're focused on women. We're focused on women with non-communicable diseases in developing and emerging markets. Like that's our niche. That's our kind of little, gap. And I know, we'll talk about, hey, it's International Women's, month and day, especially, but, for why to focus specifically on women. But I would say, listen, like, women are contributing to society, especially in these markets, more than men are. They're the ones holding up their society. So, it's an equality and equity thing for us. And as a woman, I happen to be a woman who started the organization. Yeah. So that's what I decided to focus on.
That makes sense. Well, we're going to come back because I want to go into, in the last part of the show, I want to kind of pick up or give you the chance to take us through a couple of case studies of things that you've done, because I know that you've done some really cool stuff. And then we can talk a bit about International Women's Day and like why it matters, because obviously in theory, hopefully we get to a point where we don't necessarily need that, right? Because there's equality and all that kind of stuff, but we're not there yet by a long way. So we're going to break for another commercial break, and then we will be back after 2 minutes with Marissa Fayer, CEO of Her Health EQ.
Is the quantum energy emitted from the universe, from the sun and stars. Now, Tom Palladino, a humanitarian and scalar light researcher, has created the world's only scalar light system, a system that can bring long-distance healing and wellness to humans, pets, and plants via a photograph. Get your free 15-day trial now at scalarlight.com, or click on the Scalar Light banner on the UK Health Radio website. Shields like masks are top of mind right now. But did you know you have inner armor working constantly to protect you from pathogens? It keeps you healthy and thriving. It's your immune system. Ion Gut triggers the body's natural ability to support gut strength all year long, so your immune system can protect you when you need it the most. How are you treating your inner armor? Visit uk.ionbio.com to learn more. Ion Gut. Protect what protects you.
Hello, and welcome back to the final part of this week's Health Tech Hour with me, Steve Roest, and Marissa Fayer, CEO of Her Health EQ. So, Marissa, before we dive into a couple of the things that Her Health EQ has done, which I really want to give you the chance to showcase, how would you define health inequality? I like to do this on the show because, like, there are so many words that get thrown around, not just in healthcare, but generally, right? And I just want to make sure that all of the listeners, that everyone, we're all on the same page. What is health inequality?
Yeah, so it's where there's not access to healthcare, in an equal manner. So men and women, equal access, different races, equal access. And so that's healthcare inequality, having access to quality equipment as well. And, a lot of people talk about why women, like why is there such a focus on women's health and, all of that. I mean, first of all, it was completely marginalized for so long, let's just be honest. And it's only now just being talked about. So maybe that's one of the reasons why. But the second reason, is that, let's just be honest, like women's health is just a little bit more complicated. And it's not to say, it's for superiority reasons. It just is like, women are having births. There's just also more areas of us to focus on. Yes, men get breast cancer, but disproportionately, obviously, women get breast cancer. There's so many other women's organs, and there's also such less focus on it. And that, quite honestly, women our contributing factors are different. And so women present differently for several conditions, like heart attacks. Yeah. I mean, only a few years ago, it was really talked about that women present completely different for a heart attack. So,
that's what Selena Gore was saying when she came on from Women Heart, right? That was one of the debates we got into, which is, why is there a female-only heart disease charity? And she said, well, for very good reasons, right? Because first of all, it presents completely differently. Access to healthcare, access to treatment, very different. And also culturally, you know, and societally, the way that heart disease, just particularly picking on that, is discussed or engaged with amongst women and amongst the society for as far as women suffering from that is really, really different, right? You know, like her point was like, you know, when someone thinks of somebody having a heart attack, they think of a kind of an older age man, like going down, clutching his chest. They don't think that's not how they think about, they don't put a woman in that sort of frame, right?
Right. And then just imagine it's a woman in, you know, in Kenya who like, you know, like these perceptions are still there. So, you know, nobody's going to take it seriously when a woman walks into, you know, a hospital in Nairobi and is like, I'm having a heart attack. Like, no, like, so these are things that need to be tested at a clinic level. These are things that need to be monitored for. These are just things that need to be checked as far as like what we do in a general well checkup, a well visit. So why would these things not be appropriate and applicable to test for women in every country, in every geography, in any location, in any socioeconomic level? And so for us, that's one of the reasons why, you know, why we decided to focus on it. And you know, listen, this is what we talk about when we talk about equality. Like there needs to be equal access and equal screening and equal treatment and equal everything. And it's not more than, it's equal. And then, you know, like, let's hope to God. And, you know, we hope that it's all, you know, within our lifetime, but, you know, we're not sure that it's going to be, quite honestly, but like, let's hope we just get to this equal point, you know, and it's not, again, it's not that we want more screening, 60%, 70%, 90% only on women. No, it's literally, we want it 50-50.
Well, and also I think the point is around that inequality is worse in developing countries, emerging countries, right? I think that's sort of your,
it's a societal thing.
It's a societal thing, right? So there's the inherent inequality anyway, the inherent additional complexity, layered on top of with like a sort of a societal thing that makes it harder or less acceptable, or, you know, whatever it is for women to go and engage with healthcare services, then yeah, that's a problem.
Yeah, and listen, like we also want to, and we know that in a lot of emerging markets, developing countries, that women are coming in to get a checkup because they're getting a checkup because of their baby, or they're getting a checkup because they're pregnant, or, you know, they've just had a baby. So let's give them the whole battery of tests. Like, you know, like, let's make sure all these services are available, because quite honestly, they do not prioritize their health and themselves over anybody else in that family. And oftentimes they're not even allowed to, you know, to go to get services unless they are pregnant. And so let's make sure everything's there and there's access to it when they are there. And which is why oftentimes when a woman is pregnant or has just had a baby, you know what, she's going to get a cervical cancer screening. She's going to get a treatment if she needs it. She's going to be, you know, vaccinated for HPV. She's going to, you know, all of these things. Like she's going to have a heart scan. She's going to, you know, and it's not like we're talking about a complex one where, you know, people are hooking up an EKG and making sure everything's fine. Like this is very, very basic. And just having access to it at the point of the woman is what we're talking about. You know, for access, you know, and trying to prevent some of these inequalities. And it's also different, like in the US and in Europe, you know, women are walking into the doctors like nobody's business. Like, you know, I like text chat with mine. I mean, it's wonderful, but like, you know, it's like, hey, like this does not happen everywhere.
No, it doesn't. No, sadly. So what are one or two of the things where, you know, initiatives or actions that Her Health EQ has led on recently that you want to sort of share?
Yeah, absolutely. So we have one that a few that we're really excited about, but one of them is providing the first population-based breast cancer screening program in India. So it is a 30-site program. We're providing, you know, top of the line. It's not a mammogram screen. It's actually a really very cool thermo non-touch patient. You take some pictures and cancers show up hot. So thermal imaging is really applicable, and it's really culturally sensitive. It has a geolocator app where everything gets reported and you can find your doctor close to you. We're doing this in 3 to 4 cities in northern India. And, it's open access to, private citizens, and, it's not at a public hospital. We're doing this actually in the private sector. So that's really exciting. And so we're anticipating it's 70,000 women are screened for breast cancer every single year. And so we've just launched that. We have 2 sites kind of that are getting up and running now. We have 3 to 5 that are get up and running in the near future. We've partnered with some large NGOs as well to do this in India, partnered with doctors. And so, still obviously kind of still launching that one. So that's exciting. We also have, it's really exciting. And then we also have a really big global program that we're about to launch. It's for the detection of cervical cancer. It's with one of our equipment partners, and we're doing this in 10 countries, 10 colposcopes each. And we're estimating to impact at least 450,000 women per year for screening of cervical cancer. Like this to us is a game changer, and it's an exciting one because it's 10 different countries and 10 different clinics. And so like literally it's 100 different sites. It's a lot.
And in India and this global project, is it that these devices fundamentally just didn't exist in these countries in the way that you're doing it? So this is effectively almost like a 0 to 1. It's not like screening slightly more people. It's actually screening people that for the most part or almost exclusively wouldn't otherwise be screened.
Yeah, so especially in sub-Saharan Africa, like cervical cancer screenings are not as prevalent as they should be, especially where their cervical cancer rates are very high. We're talking about 4 or 5% of the entire population are going to have cervical cancer. That is hundreds of millions of women. So let's screen for it, find it early, and you can treat it very easily. And so, we're getting this equipment into the hands of countries that we think could really, use this. Breast cancer screening is not popular in India. It's something that's not even talked about. So, let's get these into maybe some even, private clinics that could screen, middle-class women who don't have access to these services either. Like, listen, as we said, we don't necessarily just work at the bottom of the pyramid. There are a significant middle class in all of these countries. Everybody is up and coming. I mean, hence the word emerging markets. Like there is money to be spent in healthcare, and why not spend it on services for preventative screening where we just like, I just walk into the doctor and like, get this.
Yeah, I mean, prevention is prevention, right? It's sort of, like whether it's at the bottom or the top of the pyramid, it doesn't really, or in the middle, it's sort of, you're still preventing someone getting sick.
Yeah, exactly. And that's, like, that's what we're working towards, and making sure that women
really
equally have access. Like, again, this is what we talk about, equal access.
And I think that's interesting because like, is the breast cancer issue in India, is that a cultural one, do you think, or partly cultural around the sensitivity of the exam and the, the nature of where it is basically?
Yeah, I mean, it's incredibly sensitive. Nobody talks about it. Women just don't talk about their healthcare in general. It's now starting to be talked about because like everybody around the world is starting to talk about, women's health. And so women in India have been talking about this, or they didn't even know these types of technologies existed because, let's be honest, mammogram is, it is a gold standard. So is an ultrasound, but there are other ways to do it.
Yeah.
And so let's do this in a more culturally sensitive way. The technology was developed in India. So why would we not use it in the country?
Are you serious?
Yeah,
that's amazing. No way.
It's amazing. It's not our technology. We're utilizing another, company's technology, and they developed it because they saw a need. And like, that's why I gravitated towards them, because they saw the cultural sensitivity to that. Like we hired our software developers in India because they understand on how to create a medical platform for women in India. I'm not doing that from the US. That doesn't point towards cultural sensitivity.
Well, it would probably be a complete disaster if you tried to do that from the US, right? Like you would just get it wrong 100 different ways.
Yeah, and we're also providing, these are other opportunities to provide employment for women in these countries, because quite honestly, cervical cancer, breast cancer, these are very, sensitive women topics. And so women are not going to typically go to a man for these types of exams. No. So great. No. We've just provided more jobs for women, in an indirect way.
That's Fantastic. That's really fantastic. And so is there more like that sort of, I guess those two things are pretty big enough, right, to be kind of handling
Oh yeah,
alongside
But
everything else you're handling.
Yeah, no, and listen, we're going country. We're also doing other projects country by country. We're doing some other projects in Latin America. We're doing some projects in other areas in Southeast Asia, or, and in Sub-Saharan Africa. We have all intentions also to get into Eastern Europe. It was happening. We were planning to do that before the conflict. We're certainly going to be doing it as a result of after the conflict as well.
Yeah, there's a lot of people that need help.
Everybody needs help. There's areas around the world. And so making sure that, equipment is equally distributed. So we have programs that are going everywhere over, like
Cool.
we're constantly working on new ones. It's really exciting. We have equipment right now that's deploying to, nobody thinks about it because it's a vacation destination, but Zanzibar in Tanzania.
Right.
Yeah, there's still women there that need access.
Yeah, exactly. I think that it makes total sense. I think that there's sort of, like you said, there's all levels of the pyramid. There's an access to healthcare issue, and a lot of it relates to equipment. And if there's a whole bulk of equipment somewhere that isn't necessarily being used or could even be developed in that location, like in India, right, which provides employment and provides stimulus locally and also that cultural sensitivity locally. So it's not just like, someone from another country coming in and saying, hey, this works over here, you should do it that way. I think it sounds fantastic.
Yeah, no, thank you. And I think it also points to some of the work that you're doing as well, to let's just be honest. It's not just me doing this, it's you doing this, it's people all around the world that are doing this. And, from our perspective, like everybody has to work together. We all have to do this. Like, we're not an island. I don't want to be the only solution out there, because we're sometimes not the best solution either.
Well, and I think that in healthcare, right, it's not a zero-sum game, right? Because there's more and more people that need help. So it's not like in some traditional for-profit space where it's like, well, I need to be the number one in the market, because otherwise, that's market leadership position I need to have. Sort of like, well, it's a pretty big market because it kind of includes everybody on the planet. So, I'm sure we need everyone to sort of work together a little bit. So just before we go, we've got basically one minute and a half before Johannes flicks the switch. So what would your advice be to anyone who, again, in the entrepreneurial space or the not-for-profit space, as someone that's been doing a lot of different things, at a really high level for a while, like, what's the one, number one, number two lessons that you kind of hold true to?
Just keep going. Just literally keep going and don't stop. You can take a break. You can slow down. Just don't stop.
Right.
It's exhausting. Like, listen, this industry is exhausting.
Mm-hmm.
When you're raising capital, you're raising philanthropic funds, you're raising investor capital, you're developing a new product, you're doing all of these things. It's exhausting, but honestly, you have to keep going. And that's kind of what I would say. And also find something you love to do. I love healthcare. I'm not the most educated in it because I'm not a physician or a clinician, but I have one, part of it. And so from my perspective, find something you love and just keep going.
Good. Well, look, on that note, Marissa Fayer, CEO of Her Health EQ, thanks for coming on to the show. And thank you to everyone for listening. And we'll be back again next week.
Thanks so much for having me. Happy International Women's Month.
Happy International Women's Day. Yes.